Let's go ahead and call the regular August board meeting of the Odessa Development Corporation to order. Mr. Russell has graciously volunteered to do our invocation.
Amen. And let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord God, Lord, we are so thankful for this day, Lord God, and as we come together to do the business of our city and of the ODC, we just pray that you would give us your wisdom and your guidance in every decision that we make. We do pray for our community. Lord, we'd ask for a little less heat and a little more rain, if that's possible. But Lord, we just want to be obedient servants to you in everything that we do. Bless us, O Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. And would you all stand? We'll do the pledges.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. All right. Let's get the regular stuff going. Contractors report, consider the minutes of July 13th meeting and the August 3rd workshop. Has everyone had an opportunity to review? Mr. Boutan?
Yeah, I have a couple of items on the July 13th regular meeting, or the regular meeting. We said, down on second page, economic development agreement with GCC. The second paragraph there says, approve an economic development incentive performance agreement with a taxable assessed value of $320 million. I think it should read a minimum taxable assessed value of $320 million.
I would agree.
We don't want to hold them back. The other item in the next page is just a typo under the citizen. It says upcoming dates for future ODC meeting. It says the meeting has been postponed. And it should say postponed. With those corrections, I would move for approval.
Excellent. I have a motion for approval. Any other changes? Entertain a second.
Second.
I have a second for Mr. Robinson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, you may
Yes,
want to make a note that is just for July 13th, and that next month's meeting, we will do the August 3rd workshop. That's
Okay.
just for July 13th.
Okay, thank you. Can you make that note, Norma?
Yes.
Minutes? Okay, excellent. And we'll do the August 3rd minutes next month.
And this meeting.
And this meeting, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you for the clarification. Okay, contractors reports. Economic Development Department, Chamber, Tom Mansky.
Good afternoon. I hate coming up here and reporting to you when I'm all sweaty, but I guess that's not a choice for the foreseeable future.
Unless you want to wait till about November.
Hopefully no later than that. You have our report in front of you. Most of these are moving. There's not really a lot of changes. The only one I'll address as far as change, and I may mention some of it last time, Project Legion. That's in addition to Project CTV. We're talking with them. They're working at not only a public notice, but how to kind of split their projects up differently moving forward in the future, just due to today's economic climate. They have not indicated anything about a threat to the projects. They just, from a capital standpoint, they'd like to spread them out a little bit for cash flow reasons. But that is moving forward. And it's exciting. I'll walk you through a little bit. Mr. Robinson, you mentioned about the giving away money in economic development. Why is it so expensive? It is kind of expensive, and it's a long, drawn-out game, and a lot of players are in it. I'll share with you on Project Lithium, and they just changed their name because I was in Austin Monday and Tuesday with them, and we met with the governor's office. Meeting went really well. It's now called, to keep the state happy, because they use more than one word for a name, and so it has to be more than just lithium. So now it's Project Lone Star Lithium. And they recommended that because they said it would make the governor happy, and we're all about that. But we met with TCEQ. The meeting went really well. We met with Senator Sparks' team. We met with Representative Landgraf's team, the governor's economic development team. They're excited about the prospects of the project. By no means is it for certain. We started with our conversation with this group back around the 1st of April of last year. In time frame talking while we were in Austin, before we know anything for certain, it could be another 12 months. We're talking now at least every other week extensively. They'll have a question, something will come up. They're working with the landowner in West Ector County who they like the negotiations a lot, and they are getting close to an option. There's a few things that they have to look into. One of them is something we really don't have any control over, is because it's nano manufacturing technology. It relates to seismic activity out there and what they can tolerate, because some shakes can shut them down for a while. And so, usually we're pretty good at addressing problems for people and finding a way to get them fixed. I haven't found a way to fix that one. And so we did find out in our discussions, though, that there is competition. The state of Oklahoma and the state of Tennessee. I'm not really concerned about Oklahoma. In Tennessee, you deal with the Tennessee Valley Authority, and they can be a tough competitor when they come to the table. But it's a long, drawn-out process for big projects like this. And the way I best explain it to people, real economic development, we're recruiting the types of business that bring the rooftops to the community, that bring the retailers and things like that. As y'all know, we're not out recruiting the retailers, the neighborhood cleaners, things of that nature. But if you can get a project like this that's going to employ somewhere between, they said Monday, 1,000, well, actually 1,500 and 2,000 people, right. That's a lot of new rooftops. And that's our next issue to worry about. But that's Project Lone Star Lithium. Like I said, the meetings went great. I'm going to start supplying some more information to you guys with regards to some of the numbers through the years. We don't have them today. I know Tracy did a good job of pulling up property values on projects from the beginning of time, that would be ODC time, to today. And I think there's a figure out there, and it's not official math yet. We got to make sure things all check up. But, at the very beginning, before there was a project on the site, you're talking about the land values on the ODC projects were maybe $60,000 in that area. And today, that figure may be valued at $700 million in the neighborhood. But I don't want you to go run off and repeat that, because we want to give you good information that you can support and back up. And, we'll work with our marketing team to put all that together.
On this Lone Star project, the new project name, I mean, the differentiation between Tennessee and Texas, isn't it going to be based on PPM, on what they find on their tests? Do you know?
No, it's going to be based on, this group wants a lot of support, and that it's financial. We had to go through a lot of description with them as far as Texas does it differently. And you may not be aware that most states, when they work with big projects like this, they go top down. It starts with the state does everything, and then eventually it comes down to the local community. In Texas, because of the 4A and 4B sales tax, we go bottom up. And so the state will help you. They'll provide help. You've got the Governor's Enterprise Fund, which when it first came out, I think under the Perry administration, it was called the Governor's Closing Fund. But yeah, it's one of the individuals on the team who is the COO of the company is a native Texan. He's from Houston. His dad worked in Odessa for years, and so they're familiar with the work ethic. They know the workforce. They know that they're going to have to work hard to get that amount of jobs, but they also know that companies steal from each other out here when it comes to workforce.
On the PPM, I was referring to the mineralization itself, sourcing it. I mean, in some parts of Tennessee and Kentucky, it's prevalent and easier to recover the new methods than what they're going to try out here. And I didn't know if they were,
No, they're not dealing with oil and gas.
no, I know.
Or are you talking about mineral rights?
No.
You lost me for a second.
No. The source is going to be brackish water. It's going to be subsurface.
Water's not an issue because they won't be a huge water
But
user.
they're going to use minerals out of the water. That's the whole basis, other than having surface strip mining for lithium like they do in Chile and Brazil and China. They found that they can extract it much cheaper from water for brackish water, and the content has to be a certain ppm. So I thought maybe the year was why they were doing tests to see if the recovery would be good enough, or if they were going to pipe it in from somewhere else.
They haven't even broached that as a concern. You know, the main thing they've talked about, which we discussed ad nauseum the last couple of days, was seismic activity.
Okay. All right.
And so, you know, when they did indicate they're not a heavy water user, but you're talking
I'm
about
not-
drawing the
they're not gonna
material,
use the water, they're
yeah,
gonna
drawing the
extract it.
materials out of the water.
Yes.
But they have not approached us with that at all.
Okay.
And so,
So are they gonna be is this the one manufacturing lithium batteries? Are they just gonna import the lithium and manufacture here, distribute here?
yeah,
Or if I
they
got
use a
confused
method
with the
that's,
project?
it's lithium, phosphate, and one other. It's and I will email y'all the discussions because I left those notes at the office. But the batteries today, according to them, I'm not wanting to trash any other automobile manufacturer that's electric, but the batteries today are more likely to catch on fire and do some other things. What these people have been doing for the last 15 to 20 years is they build a battery that right now it's only being used by the military. And they've decided that they can take it mobile, put it in automobiles, and instead of a 30-minute charge, it's a 3 to 5 minute charge. It will go much longer on a charge than today's vehicles with today's batteries. And they feel like, and it's also safe. And they promoted that heavily in Austin the last couple of days. There's no record of a fire being caused by these batteries. And they had to do that to please the military.
And they changed the name too, from lithium to Lone Star, so.
There you go. Well, lithium's still in there. Now it's
Yeah.
our lithium. It's Texas.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it's a long project. They're all, I can tell you, none of them are the same. I can absolutely promise you that, if you've done this for any length of time. And then following, our report on our current projects, you will see again, some of the meetings we've had with our partners throughout the month. You also see the Odessa economic indicators. Once again, you get to the marketing report showing our social marketing, and we're continuing to grow those. I will tell you, and it hit me yesterday when I got an email from a group that does a quarterly magazine for commercial realtors. I think it's called Texas Real Estate Business. And like a lot of economic development programs, they have a directory in the back. So if they got a project, those commercial realtors, and they're looking for an area or didn't think about an area, they can go through that directory and give you a call. And we've gotten some calls on it. But it hit me when they sent our deal from last year and said, is everything the same? Are you going to want to do it again? It's a $300 listing. And I looked at it, and it was the bookmark deal with Odessa Economic Development. And so I thought, you know what? We heard you at our last meeting, and we're going to start addressing things we heard. And I went into Renee's office, and I said, how about in directories and everything else, we now are listed as Odessa Development Corporation. Yeah. And she said, awesome, let's run with it. Because that's, we all heard you, Renee. our team. And so I would encourage you moving forward, when you do have concerns or situations, share with us, and we will address them. We're not going to hide from anything because we are your contractor, and we're proud to be your contractor, and we certainly want to stay that way. And so you will get some information, general informational stuff, not asking for opinions or anything like that with regards to here's the value through the years that has occurred on such and such, whether it's property value, sales tax, payroll, the whole 9 yards. You'll start getting that because we want to better educate everybody on what's happening with economic development. Because I think we have a good story. And you know what? It's almost 2 years for me, but in 2 years, I haven't done a good job of sharing that with y'all and the rest of the public. And so I'm letting you know right now, I'm committed to making sure you'll be the best informed as a board member, and that will spill over into the public. So, any questions or concerns?
One little rabbit trail.
Yes, sir.
Roads USA, I know we had done a grant for them a while back. I think that is now dead. Is that still on our list of?
I will say my statement, and then Tracy, feel free to correct me. We met with them 8 or 9 months ago, maybe a year, and they sat down with us and they said, we want to change our contract. They were operating under a contract. They'd come before ODC and everything. We said, well, okay, what is it you don't like about your current contract? They wanted to front load everything. We told them, we said, you know what, it's a board deal. We can certainly make the board aware that y'all want to change your contract. I will tell you from my short history here, they don't front load things like that on projects like this. But I'm not a board member, so I'm happy to, do you have some type of proposal you want to put in front of us? And the gentleman that headed it up, and I can't think of his name right now.
Manual.
Manuel from Australia. He said, hey, I'm going to Australia for a few weeks, and when I get back, we can put something together and then sit down again. When he got up and walked out of the room, that's the last I heard or saw of him.
The reason I asked it, I know they were, Odessa Housing Finance Corp was involved with them, that whole project kind of disintegrated. I wanted to make sure, or ask the question if we still had any funds allocated to that. Because my thinking is that if we do, we probably need to start the process to kind of wind that down and find out.
And I think what you're saying, are there any in reserve that we need to?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and we probably do. Oh, there aren't? Okay.
There aren't, okay, good.
Oh, they didn't
never
sign it.
signed
Okay, they weren't operating under a contract. They had one in front of them and wanted to change that
I thought
one.
they had a contract too, so.
So,
Then we probably could take them off the general development plan, because I did notice they were still listed.
Yeah, we probably need to do that.
Making changes from
I think that whole thing is,
yeah, I think that would definitely have to be a complete do-over, and you may have to come before this board and explain yourself. And certainly if they were on contract, you can't get an audit out of somebody that we can't find.
Yeah.
So, any other questions?
Excellent. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. And ladies.
Okay, current media, I know their information's in the packet.
Christine, yeah, and she said she's on her way. She should be here just any minute now.
Okay, if it's okay with you guys, we'll just skip and come back, is that okay?
You just need to suspend the rules. Two motions to suspend the rules, then you can just go back up to it. Or just skip
I'll make a
over.
motion.
But it's all within the same agenda item.
Yeah,
Oh, that's true, it's still within
Yeah,
4.
that's true, that's true.
Are we okay, Mr.
Yeah,
Attorney?
we'll be fine.
We're good? Okay. So, item C, Black Chamber of
dang
Commerce,
attorneys.
the wonderful, auspicious, handsome, working girl's friend and housewife's dream, Mr. Chris Walker. How's that?
And being a former entertainer, you don't approach the mic till the introduction is finished. Thank you for that. I hope I can live up to it. I just want to touch base, keep it short. Last month was a really productive month for us. We're tweaking interests, and what we're finding is kind of, I guess you would call it kind of a come and see type attitude. We're starting to get little small individual companies that are approaching us with the question, okay, how do I go about this? How do I go about that? We actually did 4 counseling sessions. They have started to increase. As a matter of fact, I have schedules for this month for, we're looking at a possibility of 5 counseling sessions. These are, I guess the word is getting out that you can actually start a business and we will help you walk through this. And if we can't get you to where you need to be, we will go through the SBDC. So this, it's really been exciting. We've been able to get this information out, and we've actually getting small little independent companies, mom and pop operations, because these are mostly companies that they will have probably no more than 3 employees. So, but those type of companies is what make up a lot of the ODC. We did really well with our social media. We were down on our Facebook, but we were up. But it wasn't to the point where we were, and I think a lot of this was because of our golf tournament, the interest in that, and we'd like to thank anybody and everybody that took part. We'll be able to give scholarships. We're working on that right now. If you have a senior and they need a scholarship, please come see us. We love to have them. Like I said, we did 4 counseling sessions. We sponsored our first blood drive. We partnered with Vitalent. They were running really low on supply. We approached them. We had a mutual person that kind of put us together. They asked us if we would. We did. We went to the community, asked them to come out. We asked them to support. They did. We were able to help them double their inventory. So that was something we were really proud. We were really proud we could help do. And as a matter of fact, we're going to schedule another one in December. So if you're to the point that you haven't given blood in a while, come see us in December. We'll sign you up. We did a gospel jubilee with a citywide brotherhood organization. This brought people into town, brought them in for this. This was an event that was put together by citywide brotherhood here in our locally. We've started to work with them to help promote their activities so that people know about them. They brought in a well-known gospel recording artist. He came in from Houston. It was well attended. So these are the activities we're trying to help partner with. We help sponsor the Children's Reading Literacy Festival there at the Woodson Boys Club. This was the second. It went over very well. They gave out over somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 backpacks. I was really upset I didn't win any of the door prizes, any of the free meals that they were, but you had to be a certain age, so I think I'm past that threshold. We did our 14th annual Robert E. Williams golf tournament. We're going to issue, our goal is 10 scholarships. We'd like to do possibly more. We opened it up to the Permian Basin. So we tried to incorporate some areas that we have members, but we never reached out to before. So we took that in. We sponsored with Home Hospice Healthcare with their giveaway. They did a presentation of supplies, so we did a donation of school supplies to them as well. So we did our funding a small business with the SBDC and Tyler and their great group. So we continue to just push forward, work diligently. We have our Ebony Barwood, our 33rd, our fall cleanup, our business mixer, our winter blood drive. We're going to install some new board members. As a matter of fact, today at 6 o'clock, Judge Eddie Spivey will conduct that ceremony. So we're trying to stay busy, we're trying to stay visible, and we're trying to stay vocal, that people won't be afraid to approach us to get us to help them, and then we can come before you and get you to help us help them. So hopefully it's a team effort. Any questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
You mentioned mom and pop and boutique type businesses.
Yes.
And you and I'd spoke on one occasion before about our ability to front money. And that was a situation just come up between Jeff and Tom on that Australian, that we don't have provision for that at this point. But I hope that cleared it up, that conversation regarding that Australian company.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I didn't want to, because I know I've beat that dead horse quite a few times. What we're doing is we are tweaking the interests of organizations that would be in the neighborhood of 10,000 to 100,000, which they don't fall into the ramifications of the other companies that are looking for 1.8. That would be their budget for 20 years. So something of that, and I would love to see something of that magnitude created so that we're not turning it, and one of these companies are actually looking to kind of turn into Midland to see if they can get some help. And we asked them, please don't. Let's see if we can find you something, if we can find you somewhere that you fall into, if it's a grant or something of that nature, so that we can help our small mom and pop business owners stay in this area. That way, next year, instead of, talking about trying to get them funded, they're already to the point where they're in business and they're possibly hiring people, and they're increasing their business. So that's what, and some of these people have some phenomenal ideas. Some of them that they approached us with just actually blew my mind, that we don't have anything of that magnitude here in the basin. So, and if you'd like to, I'd love to kind of touch base with you on some of the stuff we're being approached with, and just kind of make sure you bring good coffee. As Renee and them know, I gotta have good coffee when I talk. So make sure we have good coffee. Let's sit down and let's throw around some of these
Give
ideas.
us an idea of one company that you've worked with, like these guys that maybe are looking at Midland. I mean, what industry are they in? What are they looking for?
Mr. Russell, right off the bat, the one that comes to mind is Willie Mays, Soul Food and Barbecue. Mr. Wilbur Davis is probably one of the best chefs / cooks in this area. He feels a need, when Arthur Ray's, bless his soul, when he passed away, it left a void. We have a lot of people that approach us, and the first thing they asked us, where can I get some good soul food? Wilbur, he offers that. He's just not able to get a building to the point that he can set up his restaurant. He's catering. He's doing a lot of catering business. He's staying busy as far as catering, but he would love to do a standalone restaurant. He has a food truck as well, and he caters. And Larry, we talked about the size potential to the fact that I asked him about looking at a 1,600, something smaller, to the point where he could kind of dodge some of the ramifications that he would have to go through. But he is looking for something so that he can house, because he has a lot of oil field clientele, and he is catering to those. And he has, his food is, as a matter of fact, we did a taste test for some of our friends and even some business people. We had them come up and we wanted them to sample his food. and it flat blew everybody away. And this is what we're trying to do. Another young lady has a cleaning service. She has nowhere to store her inventory. She's trying to build up her clientele. She's to the point, she just needs storage facility. Another gentleman, he has his own clothing line. He's actually from Odessa, and he has his own clothing line. He has nowhere to store his inventory, so when he makes sales, people have to wait on his clothes because he doesn't have them to the point where they're in inventory. So they're waiting on delivery of theirs. So that's the type of
Along that
stuff.
line, Chris, you and I had a discussion and about a warehouse that could potentially be available. Are you considering putting in the application for a grant there, being that that's warehousing? That could be something that hopefully we could help with.
And I'm gonna, honestly, I prayed on that, and I thought about, and I'm going to, and that's something I would love to do, and because I think that would help solve so many of our problems, to the point that it could help so many of these organizations, and for that to come available when it did, when we were looking for something like that. So yes, that's a possibility.
Yeah, the reason I ask is, two things. One, of course, we're limited as ODC.
Right.
In the industries that we can be involved in.
Exactly.
But as far as a dollar amount, if you go back in the history of ODC back to the beginning, there were a lot of smaller grants given.
Yes.
And I don't know when, except for time, you can kind of see the timeline when it diverted away from a lot of those, $25,000, $50,000 type grants. I don't know what caused that because I wasn't really paying attention at that, 20 years ago when that happened, or 15 years ago when that happened. But I mean, ODC has a history of doing some of the small grants. But again, we kind of have to be limited to the
You're right.
to the industries that we're in.
Yes, that's understandable.
So one thing I would add to that conversation, and David, you could probably speak more specifically. As I recall, about 15-ish years ago is when ODC made the policy change to where we no longer do any front-loaded grants. Used to, we did, having gotten into a couple of situations where we were trying to claw back grant funds due to non-compliance.
I get
We were
that,
unable
yeah.
to collect. There was a decision made that that wasn't happening anymore. So the businesses that need the smaller upfront funding they're no longer served by an ODC grant since they're all backloaded.
Right.
We also, Chris, Jean had brought this similar problem to us, saying, we have really small businesses and small entrepreneurs who want to get started, and this resource is not available, number one, because they're backloaded or paid in arrears, and number two, because they don't exactly fit into the industries that we can touch. At that time, we had decided to participate in the UTPB, the business challenge. That was our answer to that. That was what would allowed us to give some smaller grants to more startup type businesses. But subsequently, the board decided not to do that anymore. I think that it's worthwhile to talk about, what can we do to touch those entrepreneurs? Is there something, does somebody have a really great idea for how we can do that?
Well, one of my thoughts, and even in this particular project, like I mentioned to Mr. Walker, is, especially when we're talking about something like a warehouse we're gonna purchase, maybe have some remodeling involved, is we can still do the back-ended grants. And, I mean, how much more desirable would a loan to fund that be if they had a contract with ODC that said, next year, if we're gonna do a $50,000 grant, ODC gives if they can purchase it and secure the financing, over the next 5 years, we give them $10,000 to help support it.
The issue
If
with
they've done it
financing is
and been able to
the
occupy it.
requirements, David, for them to get a loan How hard is it for a startup to get a commercial loan?
Well, I think it's difficult, but one of the things that when we started this, I would say the last few years, trying to partner with the Black Chamber of Commerce, was to get them help us get these folks not only in the door, but then in front of the SBDC so that they could go through that training, learn how to become bankable and whatnot. It's extremely challenging for a lender when they don't have any financial history, positive financial history in the commercial world. It's a startup, there's nothing there at that point, and so there's nothing they can rely on for historical cash flow. That's the problem.
Yeah.
But I think the partnership, the interaction that they've had together, I think has been positive and will be positive in the future. So getting them in front of the SBDC.
I still think that this board should be willing to entertain if there is some idea out there that would allow us to make these small upfront grants, maybe out of our promotion budget, so not necessarily bound to the 4A, that could help increase some of those businesses. I think I don't think that's a bad thing, but
Maybe we
we
should
have
put
to acknowledge the
together
risk
some
of
kind
that.
of plan for that and say, maybe it's a $20,000 maximum or a $50,000 maximum or whatever. If we can put together a program and do that. My thought on a project like this is as David, I sit in the lender's seat quite a bit also as chairman of the board of a $100 million credit union. And to me, if somebody comes to me with a property loan and says, yeah, look, we're wanting to borrow money on this property, so not only do we have an asset that we have as collateral, but in addition to that, I've got a contract with the Odessa Development Corporation that says, if I do purchase it and I can rent it, which tenants go a long way with giving a loan as well, but I have a guarantee that if I do that, I'm gonna get $10,000 a year from them. That's a much more secure loan for me because I know they now have money to help pay that monthly premium payment. So that goes a long way in helping them secure financing on a physical asset. But I love your idea, and I think we do need to, let's put together an actual plan. Like UTPB had their business challenge. We just need
Well, we need to.
a structure.
We need to recall, maybe talk with some of the board members from that time that they decided to discontinue it. Identify,
Whenever we first passed the sales tax, they did have a microloan program in place for a short amount of time. They were about $25,000 microloans. So there still might be some historical data and legal as to how that was put together.
that would be useful for people to look at.
And would it be feasible to maybe commission Mr. Walker in the Black Chamber to really sit down and put pen to paper and try to develop an outline of a program that would meet some of these needs and bring it back to us at a
We'd love to.
I think that
I would love for this to be addressed. I
maybe
really would.
Tracy can get you. or
Yes,
somebody can get you
she's
that
already
microloan.
volunteered and don't know it. Tracy's already volunteered, she just don't know. We talk, yes, we talk. So, please, I would love this, I appreciate this coming up. I know I beat that dead horse, but we have a group that we're overlooking, and if we would start somewhere, I would love for it to start here.
It's a known problem, and we need to come up with a good solution that works for
Yes.
everybody.
Wow,
I had
thank
one
you.
thing I wanted to add to this. Post-COVID, everybody drive-in windows, there became a need in Odessa, and the migration of more Hispanics, and we're at 60%. And a lot of them come from towns where there's bazaars and small places, but there's a need for smaller boutique shops and to facilitate, like Mr. Davis, his needs. But Odessa just doesn't have them. They build a lot of new spaces, and they start at 1,500, 2,000 square foot, $20 a foot rent, and it's just out of reach. So, got to be somewhere that we could reach out to developer to build, something, a strip that had small places, 500-600 feet, that for some of these small boutiques to operate at, and that would put the funding in with that, generate every aspect of it has to be addressed, I think.
Keep in mind, we are still guided by, the certain industries that we can play in.
Yes.
So we want to stay well within our guidelines there. But in that, to be able to do this in kind of a business igniter type program, fabulous.
Because under promotional, what is it, 10% of our annual
Yes,
income can be
I
used?
wish that, city finance may be able to tell us more, but yeah, we've got a chunk. It's not an unlimited chunk, but we've got some money that we could put to the issue.
Okay.
As a small business owner, I can tell you, I love this conversation because we're only 9 years old and it was tough getting started. And to hear that there's, the city, the ODC trying to help other entities and other small business guys like myself, man, I love this conversation. Thank y'all.
Mr. Walker,
Thank you.
by all means,
All
if you
right.
could bring something back, we would be very grateful.
We will have you something. We will get you something. Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Walker? Awesome.
No, I'm good. That introduction and that conversation, I'm good.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, let's back up to B then. Current media partners, Miss Christy Calico.
I apologize for being late, so I did not move that recurring meeting up an hour, and that was my fault. I apologize. Couple quick updates. Sent an email to the advertising committee, I think yesterday, just a few things since the board report. So our video that we've been waiting on is done. I've made a couple of edits. I'm jumping on with them at 4:00 this afternoon, just to go through some final things that they need to label a few things better. There's some things that it looks beautiful. It's way beyond my expectations, but they have a couple of edits to make. And then there are a lot of assets that they're working on. So I've given them direction on everything we need and told them just to get going, just to cut loose and try to finish those up. I have the video, but it's not in its final form, and there's a couple of things, so.
What do we plan on doing with that video, Chris?
Okay, so the video will be on the website. We'll have that for presentations for when the economic development staff needs them, when you're talking about Odessa. It's just a good overview. So the big video, I think the original intent, and that started last year, was just to have a really good asset on Odessa in general and everything that sells it. For my purposes on marketing, it's going to be all the smaller assets that we get from it. For example, we have topic-specific videos. So we're doing one on just manufacturing. We're doing one on workforce. We're doing ones on things that we're planning to promote already. Then we get 6 smaller social videos. Then we get these animated clips. They've done this very, very nice animation on Interstate 20 and the rails and things that kind of show off some of the things that we're telling people about that we offer. So really the breakout of all of those things to me is what's most beneficial. And that's what we're going to start putting out in our digital campaigns. Did that answer enough on that? On the digital campaign, so we have started, now that we have the website up, we have started running some digital campaigns. The focus right now is more on LinkedIn. I mentioned, I think, last month that we shot some testimonial videos with a lot of our partners, with Odessa College, with UTPB, Willie Taylor with Permian Basin Workforce Development. A lot of good sound bites on workforce. And so I think as y'all were talking last week too, we're putting a lot of our effort into getting more and more of those. So I've seen a few of those. They're starting to come in. One thing that I mentioned in the email but hadn't really said in the report, as we were trying to put together content for these digital campaigns, one thing that we noticed is that there are a lot of people doing a lot of things, but that collaboration and this person not knowing what this person or organization is doing. So we've started, I think I have 3 pages right now worth of social post and digital content on, did you know Odessa College offers a BASS program that's a 4-year degree? Did you know that UTPB has this advanced manufacturing certificate? Those kinds of things, just to let local employers and even job seekers kind of know and kind of work more as that connector. So that's brand new, kind of fleshed out, but we're still working on it. But those are some things we thought would be good content. Also for Lindsay, as she's working on social media. So working through a few of those things to really address more of the things we can address right now, I think, on workforce. On On the website, I wanted to mention, I think I mentioned this in the very beginning, Golden Shovel has got what they call a gatekeeper service. That is something that basically you have to commit to, when you do the website. But what it makes us do is it's going to make us get on a monthly meeting with them to make sure that things are up to date. We'll also have people from the economic development staff on there to make sure we're doing this. But what they do, they have a lot of tools where they are looking at content statewide, nationwide. They're helping us develop some of the content that we should be pushing out. So it's kind of another resource. And quite frankly, it puts a meeting on the calendar once a month to make sure that we're looking at your website and keeping it current. So wanted to mention that. I'm not sure I'd mentioned that in the past. Publications, and originally we had a pretty large budget for publications this year. And as we were talking to the advertising committee about a month ago, we kind of pulled back on that. We're still running. There will be a presence. A lot of those publications, it helps if we've been in them when we have a big announcement to come back. But we're running in a much smaller way. But those are starting. One thing that I changed since last week, we have a QR code at the bottom of those ads where at least we can track back to know what we're getting. But that QR code will actually take them directly to contact information, email addresses, phone numbers, not just a website, not just a landing page on those ads. Landing pages. On the digital campaigns, we're also setting up landing pages so that we can track all of our campaigns to a page to know what kind of success we're having. And really, the next couple of months, we're going to be looking at what's working and what's not, so that when 2024 comes around, that we have a really good game plan and we're adjusting accordingly. Other than that, we have a BRE leave behind that we are working on that I've seen a proof on, but I have not forwarded to Tracy yet to check out, make sure everything's right on that. She had given me some information and just another tool that hopefully to help when they're going to see businesses, but also that we can turn into a digital component when we're running business retention campaigns. So starting finally to do a lot of the tactics now that some of the bigger tools have been created.
Is there a way that you can test printed publication, like put something in there to get a response from it and get counts on where, who's
seeing it?
receiving it? And
Yeah, so what we're doing, I mean, the one good thing, if you had asked me this 4 years ago about using QR codes, I would have said no, and with the pandemic, that changed. Everybody uses them more. We have a QR code that'll be at the bottom. So it would take the person scanning that.
I see.
So you can have people flipping through, and of course, I won't know if 10 people flipped and didn't, scan.
Yeah.
But if they scan it, we will have a spreadsheet on the back end that tells us who they were, gives us a little bit of information. And then from there, we can track on the website, because the website, of course, has Google Analytics that we have access to now. So some of those things that you're going to be seeing
we used
will
to
be,
put a key word in there, they could only get it out of a certain
Yeah.
ad, so
yeah,
we would count the responses.
Yeah.
and make decisions who to go with.
yeah,
Another question, okay.
yeah.
A minute ago, you were going like this a couple of times, and it made me think of Reels
Oh.
on social media. I started seeing some ads worked into Reels where they'll have the animals done things, and you start watching them, and then
Yes.
you don't really like it, but you see
But
it,
you're
and
drawn to it, yes,
discover it.
yes.
So,
yeah.
But I hadn't seen that aspect, but, there-
I have not planned on the Reels, but one thing that we have planned on the social side, on the paid side, would be the stories. So they're the more vertical stories where you have, some will be our videos, some might be like an animated graphic to where you'd have, just for instance, that did you know?
well, if they're searching Google, AI will put it back.
That's true.
That story will come back to them.
Speaking of which, when you asked last week about the old site that was popping up, we found that. There was an old development test site from probably 10 years ago that was still existing. Yeah, and it just, so that, I need to double check, but it should be down. If
This
not, it will
happened to
be
be the
down.
first one.
I'm glad you saw it. I had not seen it, so, yeah, but we did find it. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Anybody else? Thank you, Christie.
Thank you, guys.
All right. University of Texas at the Permian Basin Small Business Development Center, Mr. Tyler Patton.
Get like
walk-on music or something. I
I think that's a great idea. Everybody can, we can play their walk-on music, you know, from Baby Shark or whatever it is.
Thank y'all.
Absolutely.
Glad to join you again. Good afternoon. I just wanted to go over the report real quick and kind of update you on what's been going on with the center over the last few months. If you look, going back to April through June, if you just look at the counseling section and counseling hours, you can see that we had quite busy. June is normally one of our slowest months of the year, and it just was not this year. In fact, we did from April 1 through the end of June, we did about double the number of client meetings that we normally have. And new clients were up by 50% for the same period versus last year. Now, July did slow down a bit. Part of that is because we were out attending the Professional Development Conference for an entire week. And then I had another person out for another week for illness. So we were a little short-staffed. Again, there's 4 of us. So when one person's out, it stings a little bit. But for the month of July, we had 2 seminars. We had 20 attendees. Those 2 seminars were, we had People Fund in town. They did an Access to Capital workshop for us. We used to do that once a year. They're really big on the microloans, and we have quite a few clients that's the range they're looking for. We also did a workshop of legal structures for business, going over LLCs, DBAs, things like that, obtaining EINs. But we got good turnout for it. For this month, we've got 2 workshops going. One's going on actually today, and it's fraud prevention. And then in 2 weeks, I will lead one on, it's titled Don't Fear Financials. And it's basically walking people through how to read an income statement, balance sheet, all those kind of fun things. For the month, we had 3 new businesses. 2 of them were in Odessa. A little over $700,000 in capitalization for the month. All of that was from businesses in Odessa. Quite a few employees added to the roles the last couple of months. This month, it was primarily coming from a restaurant and an event space that we have in the area. They had started and a few months ago and are ramping up now. So they added quite a few employees. Some of the new businesses this month, the 2 primarily talking about, were a tanning salon and an online recipe and food prep service. So that was pretty interesting. But over the last couple of months, we've also had a local freight company, a dump truck service company, a cinnamon roll franchise, which I have to go check out as soon as I possibly can, a machine shop, forklift service company, a bistro, and an educational support. And that's a pretty good representation of kind of our clients. They're all over the place. It used to be primarily oilfield services, and we do still get that, but that's not dominant as much as it was in the past. Any questions?
Excellent.
That's awesome.
All right. Thank you, Tyler.
Thank you again for your support.
All right. Motran, and I don't see Mr. Beecham here, so I think their presentation's in our board packet. So City Administrative Support and Financials, Mr. Seth Bowles.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know in our last meeting, we held off on approving the April and May financials. We got some more information pulled on where some of those issues that we noted were in. I do want to let everyone know that I will have June and July financials at the September meeting. We'll be fully caught up on financial support from that perspective. In regard to the board question on that $2 million that's sitting in infrastructure grants, that's actually related to the TxDOT infrastructure grants that were set aside down in the assigned. And if you'll look at your April report, down there it says TxDOT assigned, it's at $9 million. That should be $7 million. So that will be fixed to kind of line up with how things should be. Also, the workforce housing infrastructure incentives were completed back in August of '22. So that $70,000 that you see on those reports will also go away.
Excellent.
So as of May 2023, there is only $7 million set up for that TxDOT assigned infrastructure grants. And then if anybody has any questions for me on some of those responses, I'll be happy to. And then I'll have a lot of financial reports to approve in the next meeting. 4, it looks like.
Excellent.
We got our sales tax.
We did get our sales tax information. On the back of that page that I gave the board for the proposed budget. That number one note that's there, our sales tax for ODC through August is coming in at 13.2 million. For the month of August, it was about 1.3 million.
That's up quite a bit.
It is up quite a bit from this time last year as well again.
Okay. I mean, do we think we need to do any kind of budget change based on the increase? I mean, we know those are never guaranteed and can flip in a moment's notice, but.
And I would recommend that 12 million that we do have budgeted, just so we stay conservative with that, but that's strictly up to the board.
I'm okay with it. We
happy
can do
to
an
be
amendment anytime.
conservative.
Okay. I like it. Any other questions on the April or May financials at this point, Mr. Bowles?
I would recommend we don't approve them in this meeting. I wait to approve them in the next meeting until we can make those changes I spoke about.
Okay. I'm okay with that. Everybody else okay? Okay. So, no motion necessary on financials at this point then. Any other questions for Seth? Wonderful. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, just want to remind the public that this is an open meeting, and therefore any member of the public may address the ODC board regarding any of its agenda items before or during the consideration of any item. Which, by the way, do we have comment cards? Anybody needs to sign up or anything, or are we just old school, raise your hand and I call on them? Ms. Norman?
Old school, raise your hand, but I can create some ODC speaker cards.
I don't think.
Old school works.
Yeah.
Old school seems to work. I just, for the sake of argument. Okay, excellent. With that being said, item 5, discuss and consider reviewing and approve the City of Odessa and Odessa Development Corporation Board's investment policy for changes to investment officers, including the addition of our interim director of finance, the wonderful Mr. Seth Bowles.
I should have just stayed up here. I saw that line and just went ahead and sat down, so.
Great opportunity to get your steps in. That's
Well, that's what I need, so. All that this item is doing, back in the second meeting of the city council's, meeting in June, they approved the changes to the city's and ODC's investment policy. It's, best practice to bring it to the ODC board as well to approve the changes. This is just the change to include my title as an investment officer during this time of transition. We will actually be bringing this back to the board and the city council at the start of the year. That policy gets updated once a year. And this is just so any transactions I'm working on will cover my current job title.
Okay. Question for you along the investment policy deal, as I've looked at your resume. How comfortable are you in making investment decisions as far as, moving stuff from TextPool, TextLogic into, bonds that may come available, that type of thing in your experience and such?
That type of experience, I've had about 4 years of experience doing that.
Okay.
I am PFIA compliant. I made sure while prior administration was here to do those classes as well, in line with my CPA license. As always, I'm more open to more training in that area as well.
Okay. Those are my main things, your comfort level. I am a Series 7 licensed broker, grand finance and investments. We also have plenty of experience, I know, with Mr. Boutan, being in the banking business. And so just to extend, if things come up and we're unsure,
I would come to the board.
feel free and reach out. Well, there are a lot of cases, there are investments that are only available for a very, very short period of time.
Yes.
You may get a call from one of the brokers saying, hey, Seth, I've got this, it pays a great yield, it meets the board's investment policy, but we need to pull the trigger in the next 3 hours. You know what I mean? So
And is that a best practice to reach out to the board in that time period just to?
typically you don't have time for the board. That's why I was
Exactly.
asking you your comfort level and, it's,
Well,
I think
as-
you could reach, as just offering us as a source for you.
I think comfort-wise, I'm there.
Okay.
To make those decisions. I have not made any investment purchases since I have become interim director of finance. The reason being is because the ODC board has not approved this yet as well. So
Okay.
in that time period from June to now, there have been no investment purchases.
Okay.
So,
I think that's great. I just, if you have questions along those lines, I have, 30 years' experience is what. I know
and I'm
Mr.
always
Boutan does.
open
I'm sure
to
he'd be happy to welcome
listening,
any,
so.
any opinion as well. Sure. I'm speaking for you, David, if you want to say, heck, no, don't call me on that stuff. But just offers as a resource for you.
And I appreciate that. So I'm here to help if in any way I can too, so.
Okay, excellent. With that being said, I would entertain a motion to approve
I
the,
have one quick
please.
question. I guess I'm a little confused by the language here. I understand the need for the change, but what happens when interim goes away? Do we need to amend
It will-
the document again?
It will be amended for the new year, fiscal year coming up anyway in September. This is more of just a Band-Aid.
Well,
Band-Aid
yeah,
for
we
the
do
next month.
both?
But if it
Could we
had-
do
but if it had-
finance manager and interim?
But there's also other issues as well, like the assistant city manager administrative services. I haven't seen the new organization chart, but I think that's actually going away. So we will be back in.
This is the Band-Aid.
It was that a few weeks of this one, and then,
This is
yes.
just a Band-Aid.
Okay,
So what you're saying is that we're going to be amending, if we approve this as is, we're gonna be amending it within a short period of time.
Within a month, yeah.
but this gives Seth the
In
ability to take care of
In the
business.
next month, I can
between
take
now.
care of that. I just didn't want to do anything until it was documented the right way,
I
so.
would agree, we need to do that.
This is just a Band-Aid.
Can you make it more, can we genericize it to where we say something like the approved, ODC representative or whatever in the contract, and then we define so that we don't have to amend the contract, we just change our approved list.
I don't think that would be that much trouble to do that. I think that's doable.
It normally gets done in September for the next year, every year. So it's coming, the updated one is coming again.
Very
and-
general, you're talking general terms?
Yeah, general term, and then we define who that approved list is, or
Okay.
that way, every time we have an org change, or, a structure change, or somebody comes in and out, we don't have to amend it just to reflect that.
And, yeah, and I would add to that it ought to be like somebody within the department in the city and that is designated.
Should be the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
I think it'd be a lot better way to handle it.
We'll
We
put,
got that? Okay,
we'll generalize it, play with the language.
so do we need to put off approving this? Do we have that, or?
I make a motion, we approve it as presented.
Yes. You need to
Then you'll-
approve it Just for the
then-
Band-Aid, and then.
Okay, then for the next time, we'll do that.
Back, we'll-
Okay, excellent. So I have a motion from Mr. Boutin.
Second.
I have a second from Dr. Kirk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Seth. Item number 6, discuss and consider the fiscal year 23 to 24 contractor agreements. We'll just start at the top. A is economic development and the chamber. On this one, I would still like to go to a shorter-term contract. The reason for that is I think we need to do our due diligence. The vast majority of economic developments across the state do their economic development separate from the chamber. I've already started reaching out. We've reached out to Midland, San Angelo, Abilene, Lubbock, and Seguin so far. In addition, Ms. Earls has been fantastic in answering a lot of our budgeting questions, which we received yesterday. Just one second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir?
if I'm not mistaken, I believe Ms. Holman made the motion last week for 1 year to accept this on 1 year for the contract,
That was on
That
the
was the
budget.
budget.
on the budget.
That was
The
just-
contracts were not on the agenda. It was just the budget.
Yeah, but anyway, but.
There
that's
was
something-
discussion, yes.
Well, yeah, so that's just something just to keep in the back of your mind here,
Thank you.
so.
I would move that we accept the economic development agreement with the chamber as presented for all of the reasons that were discussed at length and ad nauseum last week. I understand we want to spend some time and study, but I think that we need to have a solid contract. I think it's going to take a year or more to answer all the questions that are going to come up during the study.
So I have a motion. I'm going to go ahead and ask for a second.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. So first, a little more discussion. So I understand that, and to talk about some of those, because one of my reasons is the things that you brought up, which is, why would we want to do this? So again, we have seen many vast majority of economic developments across the state do it a different way. Why is that? Hold on. Why is that? Second thing is there a different way to build the mousetrap? We've done this since 1998, and nobody's ever done this. As it's been brought up, they're a contractor. We do look at all of our vendor contracts and put them out on occasion because we're doing our due diligence. We are entrusted with taxpayer dollars. It is our job, feasibility-wise, to make sure we're getting the best value out of every tax dollar that's spent. All I'm asking for, and again, I want to be abundantly clear before it gets out there that Chris Crow and the ODC are trying to shut down the chamber. That's not it. I'm looking for time to do the research. And I don't think it's going to take near a year. I think it can be done in just a matter of a month, 2 months, 3 months. So I'm looking for the time to do the feasibility, which we've already started to get the questions answered. You brought up a lot of things. What about payroll? What about human resource? What about the liability? We can hire a payroll company. I have a payroll company. I pay $125 a month for 4 employees that takes on 100% of the liability.
We're
still personally liable, we have a chamber member that's doing it. There's no difference.
No,
They're a
he's not our
vendor.
employee.
They're a vendor.
We are not liable for their payroll taxes.
Nor would a
He's not
payroll
our
company we
employee.
hire be our employee. They would be a vendor.
I know, but the employees would still be our employees. If you hire a payroll company to handle your payroll process, you're still the employer.
When we get to that point, I'm asking for time to review this and find out what we don't know.
I think time is good. I think that it's going to be important for our economic development process that they have a year-long contract in place so that our potential grantees know that they're working with somebody who's going to be there
And
through the process.
I think with the ethics and the morals of our employees and the ones that they know. And again, I'm not asking that we take this away from the chamber. I'm asking we do our due diligence that we've sworn to do. So to do this, I have a motion and a second on the floor.
We can have further discussion, can't we?
Okay, if somebody else would like to discuss, sure.
I'd like to
But
speak.
I don't want to beat this to death.
No, I'm following your lead. I think we need to do our due diligence. I think we need to take our time to make sure that we are getting all the information we need. All of the performance information with our chamber, with other cities, the way they conduct their business. I think we need to plod through this to make sure that we are making the best decision, because it is very important that we manage the taxpayer dollars the way they need to be. This decision is huge. This Odessa Development Corporation has been very successful in the creation of jobs and capital investment. And there's no reason for us not to take a look at how we do it. I don't want to do anything just because that's the way we've done it. But we need to be careful. We need to be cautious. We need to be, and use the word diligent, we need to be very diligent in the way that we pull this information together and make sure we don't leave a stone unturned. I don't want to be in a hurry to do it. Therefore, it makes sense to me that we renew this contract for a year, go through the process very carefully, prudently, and that's the reason I made the second.
Well, I will disagree on that, and in just a second, and I'll recognize you both. The reason for that is I don't think it'll take that much time, but even if it does, on a quarterly thing, next quarter if it comes up, we still need more time, we can. The next quarter comes up, we can still. The next quarter comes up, we can still. But if we don't, and we can put it to bed sooner, we've done the chamber a much better service by giving them that peace of mind that you talked about quicker.
I believe a quarter would be a good measure. Tom had talked about making some changes in there. We could change things, get feedback, see the results quarter, maybe make adjustments at the quarter, do another quarter or year from there. But I think we need to be able to gauge quarterly, keep it on that pace, and then change it to a year. If everything resolves and it's to our satisfaction, we go back to a year.
What is not to your satisfaction? Nobody's ever said, I understand that we want to study this for the purpose of identifying if we're doing the right thing with the taxpayer dollars.
Nobody
I
said
don't
that there was
see
something
why
we didn't
the
like.
year contract is in opposition to that. It gives our grantees comfort. It gives potential projects comfort. It gives us the time to do it right. what is it that needs to be resolved?
Mine was in opposition to doing it a month at a time, not a year. I think quarter is more achievable and
I would
amenable
agree with
to
Larry. I
everybody.
think
But you
a
mentioned things to
quarterly.
be resolved.
Well, I don't know that resolves the word that I would use, but I do think even as we look at shifting to more, I hope, maybe, more workforce development, if that's the way we end up going. We've got a whole statement that we're gonna talk about here in a minute to be inserted into our general development agreement. I think there's a lot of things moving right now, and I feel very reluctant to get locked into a year contract as is, with the realization that we may be changing direction and changing focus, and that may require some changes in structure. I don't know I can't rub my crystal ball and at this point say what we're going to learn once we do our analysis, once we do our study, our research. I don't know what that's gonna yield. I don't know what it's going to yield as we look maybe at more workforce development, which is where I'd like to see us go. But I think quarterly by quarterly is a good in-between place to be. It gives the chamber the running room that they need to continue doing their job as our contractor. It also gives us the flexibility of the board throughout the course of the next year to make adjustments as we need to.
I don't think that expanding our focus to include more workforce development is in contrast or adverse to our contract with the chamber. I guess I'm not following with the tie between expanding our focus on.
Well, I think we could debate the nuances of the why, but again, me personally, I would feel comfortable with the quarterly type of arrangement, just like Larry voiced. I mean, that's where I'm at.
Well, we know that these typical economic development initiatives that our contractor manages for us typically take longer, much longer than a quarter. I mean, why wouldn't you give them the running room for a year?
They take much longer than a year.
Yeah.
They take much longer than a year. So where do you draw the line? So for now,
I'm-
I have a motion and a second on the table.
And Mr. Chairman, this is to approve the contract. With the
This is
year.
the motion for the year.
Yeah,
That's
for the
correct.
year.
That's correct.
For the
Yeah,
contract
this
that we
is
have.
Melanie's motion, the contract as
Right. So
it sits.
Can I just address one issue? And I was looking through the budget that we submitted for an annual contract. I think there might be some cost incurred in the subscription area that would be for more than 3 months. We would have to look at that. So I don't know that the budget matches a 3-quarter or a 3-month
Are the
process. I
contracts
just want to bring that up.
in the chamber's name, or are they in economic development's name?
They're in Chamber Economic Development, so they're in,
So the way, when I read the
Yeah.
contract, anything we contract for under economic development should be contracted under Odessa Development Corporation.
well, Odessa
Not the
Development
chamber.
Corporation is Chamber
Separate-
Economic Development,
No,
so.
Chamber's contractor for Odessa Development Corporation.
So,
You keep telling me.
Regardless, I do think that the budget we've submitted is for a contract for the year, so there might be some minor changes. It's a $90,000 line item.
I would certainly entertain budget amendments later.
We could
if
work
be
that
the
out in
case.
the first quarter,
Yeah.
though. I mean,
And some of those subscriptions maybe just wouldn't
attend to
be
that.
renewed, or we'd have to look at it, but. And I do want to say, I feel confident in saying this. They are employees of the chamber. And so what would happen with their employment, they would be employees of the chamber. Their duties are economic development. It's uncomfortable to talk about the staff. 2 of them are sitting in the room. But, the elephant in the room is, we would hope that, we would be able to utilize them in other ways, or certainly help them seek other employment. But you made the statement that you don't want the message to get out that Chris is closing down the chamber. Chris can't close down the chamber. The chamber is overseen by a board of directors. In fact, 2 of them are in our audience, our chairman, Grayson Hankins, and our chair-elect, Judd Campbell. But, the chamber is still alive and well. We have served as your contractor for almost 30 years. I think it's been an excellent relationship, as I mentioned last week. Many of those organizations that you mentioned that have left the chamber left for reasons just like this, because somewhere along the line, the relationship was strained, or they felt like, it wasn't as successful as it could be. I would ask if that added to the strain of that continued relationship. But, I'm biased. I think it's working well. I think having this team, and we are a team, your chamber is a team that supports you. I would hope that would continue, but we're willing to work with you on however we need to do that. It would be difficult sending a message to the staff that they're basically on a quarterly basis, but.
I understand. And again, we don't know what we don't know.
Sure.
We're looking for the time to explore that and find out what's out there.
I do think it's hard. 3 months is 3 months. We're talking end of December, so.
I again would stress that to do this process well and to ensure that our current contractor is able to do what we're asking them to do, that we commit to a year contract with the intention of during this year period, studying closely what works, what we think may need improvement, and that we identify those things clearly. I don't think they're clearly identified now.
Excellent. We can factor that in.
And we can also be a team player in that discussion. And, again, up until a week ago, we didn't know there were concerns. I know that Chris and Jeff, you meet with Tom on a fairly regular basis. And none of that had been communicated. So again, we can't really work on something we aren't familiar with, and we want to be a partner 100% of the way.
And we plan on that. As you've been fabulous, already starting to answer a lot of our questions. We plan to continue that. Or I say we, I plan to continue that because I can only speak for me. But thank you. But right now, I do have a motion.
Quarterly, I think it'd be 4 recitals to get it right, where we might a year later be in the same position. We get up to contract renewal and we haven't done anything, but it'll give us stopgap points to stop and check to see if you've achieved what you needed to achieve, see what we need to achieve, see if we're in parity. And I think they're just checkpoints throughout the year, and I think that'll make us, everybody on the board, review everything we're doing, where otherwise, we could be this same position 1 year from today.
Well, and we also want to keep in mind that staff needs to be continuing to do their job, which is economic development and recruiting here along those 3-month period, that 3-month period or quarter, versus pulling up data and sending emails out and responding to answers, where we want them to do what you pay them to do. So,
We understand.
Larry, if we don't all have the message to work on this and there's a sense of urgency, then shame on us. There's no reason to make it quarterly in order to stimulate the work.
Okay, so.
Okay,
Hold on.
Brandon.
Let's just, right here. I've got a motion and a second to continue the contract on an annual basis. We have to deal with that first. All in favor to continue for an annual contract, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Who
Now,
all,
I will entertain another motion.
who all voted nay?
Do I have another motion?
I would make a motion that we approve the contract on a quarterly basis, and then we'll review it at the end of each quarter.
I have a motion from Mr. Russell. I have a second from Mr. Navarrete. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Ms. Norman, do you have that?
Yes.
Okay. Motion passes. Quarterly contract. Thank you. Next would be our contract for current media partners. Has everyone had a chance to review?
I'd make a motion to approve it as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none. I have a motion and a second to approve the current media partners contract as it's written. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Black Chamber of Commerce. Has everyone had a chance to review? Excellent.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion approved by Dr. Kurt.
Second.
Have a second from Ms. Holman. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. University of Texas Small Business Development Center.
Motion to approve.
Everyone's had a chance to review.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. The Midland Odessa Transit Authority, MOTRAN. Everyone's had a chance to review. Excellent.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion from Mr. Robinson, second from Mr. Navarrete. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. City Administrative Support and Financials. There were a couple of little changes, right, Seth?
On the wording under funding and payment, it's got in there 175,000 annually, it should be 175,349. So that'll change the monthly amount based on our discussion on the proposed budget last special meeting.
That came from your suggestion, David, that they take the 30,000 from that and move it down to the special services, which will later be termed outside legal. Everybody good with that change? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I have a motion from Dr. Kurt,
Second it.
second from Mr. Robinson and Mr. Navarrete to make changes for the contract as amended. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. All right, that's all of our contracts. Now we're on item 7, remove from the table to discuss and consider the fiscal year 23-24 general development plan. So I would entertain a motion to remove this from table.
So moved.
Second.
Motion from Dr. Kurt,
Second. I mean,
second from Mr. Boutan, that okay? Or motion from Mr. Boutan, second from Dr. Kurt. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we are now removed from table. So discussion on the general development plan.
I handed out to, sorry about that. I handed out to everybody kind of a first draft of kind of more workforce development related stuff to include in our development plan. We only had a week to get this done. I tried to get it out to everybody last night, but apparently the wheel fell off. But really kind of took a good stab at kind of looking at a lot of other communities' workforce development programs and what's going on around our state in particular, and trying to kind of develop a plan on how we kind of home in on what we need here. And so you'll see it's kind of broken down into some big categories. This first one, situational analysis, kind of looking at trying to do some research, look at where we're at as a community, what are the needs in our community. Really trying to survey businesses and things like that to determine what they need, that they are short on, that they can't get. There's a few obvious ones that we hear about all the time, like truck drivers and things like that. I think there's probably a lot of other ones that are in there that are maybe mid to lightly skilled jobs that we just can't get people for them. So the first part would be just kind of that analysis of just trying to determine what we're lacking. And then once we do that, it really kind of comes into developing strategies along with our colleges and universities, our permanent-based workforce development board, all those people, including which I don't know that we've ever really done in the investment, including ECISD. I know a career and technical education center is going to be a major part of the next bond. And I know they're going to be going out there trying to work with PSP and other people to kind of supplement the taxpayer-funded part of it through the bond. But that whole CTE is gonna be kind of a big emphasis, and so I think there's a lot of things in it, and it's, we've done a lot as a community, I think, welding programs, machining programs, things that are directly oil field related. Probably some places where we need some, to buttress up, there are some of the building trades, things like that. We're not training nearly enough HVAC electricians, plumbers, these types of folks. And then looking at, kind of reskilling. Are there people that we need to move from the job they're in, which may be a little bit of a dead end, into something that is more important to our community, that pays better, that has more future in it. And then the last part, the last of the three parts is this infrastructure and quality of life enhancements. We've been talking about that in things like the sports center and things like that. How do we all work together, all the taxing entities, all the community work together to improve the livability and affordability of our community. I know Councilman Swanner, Councilperson Swanner has done a lot of analysis over her time in office and looking at, how do we make more affordable housing things? And I know it's been kind of a little bit of a frustrating climb for her, but I think we have to continue to look at that. I know Odessa Housing Finance Corp continues to do stuff, and they've got kind of a next phase, I think, that they're getting ready to announce in the near future to bring some more affordable housing units on the market. They got the 191 property online, and in talking to Jill, one of the things that they found is that a lot of that large 191 complex, is getting filled up with school teachers, with fire, EMS, police, because they just fit underneath the category to get federally subsidized rents in some level. It's not free rent, but it's subsidized. And so just the way the numbers worked out, they just kind of fell into that deal. And so that's been a real positive to help find, nice housing arrangements for some of these really key people in our community. And then kind of title number 5, performance metrics and evaluation. And this is a lot of what I think we probably haven't done as good a job on a lot of the, and sometimes the KPIs are really hard to define. But we gotta have some benchmarks, we gotta have some targets, we gotta have some, if we invest this dollar, what are we expecting back? And how do we do that? And sometimes I know those are very hard to develop, because we're not dealing with just numbers. We're trying to gauge the impact of things and all that. But anyway, that's a first recruit. First cut, I kind of stole Chris's recruit, retain, and retire is the title of it. But I offer this out for conversation on us on the workforce side.
Where would you insert it?
It would go, I think we have a small section, if I remember right. We have a small section on workforce development.
We have a line item on the mission statement that says help build a skilled and educated workforce. Would you change that wording? And then would you insert it somewhere else in the document?
I think we could.
I mean, you have an A, B, C. I mean, the A is a multi-year economic development grant agreements that we have. They're referenced in here.
You make it create just a new, like an E, because you've got, C is downtown Odessa, facade grants. You could probably just create a new category.
E is administrative services.
Yeah. I would like to actually, I would like to propose that we maybe put it in as item C and then slide everything else down a letter in the alphabet, so that our major focus is kind of at the top, and then as we go on down into specific programs like the infrastructure grants and all that would become D, and so forth and so on through the document.
At the risk of being a real pain, I'd really like to get to spend some time with
Sure.
this before I vote on including it in our general development
Okay.
plan, since we just got it.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that. I would like everybody to spend some time with it.
Absolutely.
In
And
case
this will be a
anybody
work in
has any
progress anyway.
questions or suggestions.
Yeah, and I really think, along those lines, I really think our general development plan, it ought to be a kind of a living document. It ought to be a work in progress that we're always kind of looking at, refining and tweaking as we go through and things change.
Well, we talked about coming up with a 5-year plan and then using the general development plan as our annual update, our annual checklist, if you will. I think that's what we ought to do with it.
One of the things we still talked about was to get together in a special session to do just planning.
Yeah,
Development.
that's what I was talking about.
And so, this could be a piece of it, but one of the things I'd suggest is we can actually make like a perpetual item on the agenda for the development plan, just, if we have anything that month, we can tweak it if we don't.
In order to make our meetings last more perpetually.
I know you love spending time with me, Melanie, so you bet.
I'm gonna start sending you a bill.
Okay, so then, right now, do we want to approve it as it is? And I'll put an item on the agenda for next month as far as this goes, to see if you guys have a chance to look through it and want to make changes, want to include it at all.
Tina, would you remind me of a prior conversation? I feel like you told me that having to amend the development plan is not just, let's amend it kind of thing, right?
The
Council has to approve.
downtown is what takes, it is a huge deal. The general development plan itself is just discussion and
Okay,
amendment.
I just wanted to check in on that, because I remember we've talked about it before.
Yeah, it does
You're
need to
talking-
go before council.
You're talking about the downtown developments?
No,
The facade and infrastructure?
if we change.
Yeah, okay, that's what I meant.
Yeah, if we end up changing something that it ends up,
Yeah, that has to go before council, but this,
The facade and infrastructure does, but the rest of it
the
doesn't,
development
okay.
plan does have to be approved by council,
Yes,
but it's not that big.
but it's not as big of a lift as some of the others. Okay,
Okay.
I just wanted to check in on that.
Good point. Good question.
I mean, I'm perfectly fine, kind of making a motion that we approve the development plan as it is written in our packet with the understanding that we're gonna come back and we're probably gonna tweak in the future.
Needs one change. Roads USA needs to come out of the
Yes. good-
list,
good memory.
listing.
Okay, so I'll take Jeff's motion to approve it as written with David's change of removing Roads USA. And then my hope is that we'll be able to get together for a planning session and we can talk about this, a myriad of multiple of other things in the next month or so. We'll get with everybody on their calendars and schedules to kind of spend a day, or part of a day, if that works for you guys. So, is everybody good? I have a motion with one change.
Second.
I have a second for Mr. Boutan. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
I have one question maybe for Tracy. Trey, could you answer a question for me? On Downing Wellhead, it's in our motion here. Did we ever decide on their land site?
Actually, yes, we're gonna be bringing that back for approval. They are gonna buy property in Lico, which is in the city of Odessa.
Good deal.
But we just gotta go back and do some tweaking on some numbers, get it back.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, that brings us to item number 8, discuss and consider the fiscal year 23 to 24 budget. Getting the steps in, Mr. Bowles.
All right, well, everyone should have the proposed budget as before this meeting today. The one thing I do want to bring up to two things on insurance line item. That's the annual premium that we're going to talk about in the next line item for your annual premium on the insurance for the ODC board. So that number, I don't know if we need to discuss that before we approve that number there as well.
Probably, so therefore, we would have to suspend the rules to take items out of order. I would entertain a motion to suspend the rules so that we can move item number.
10. No.
No, it's not 10, it's,
Where was it?
Number 9. It's number 9.
number 9. Okay, take number 9 before number 8. So I'd entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Russell, second from Dr. Kirk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We now stand rules suspended. So let's move to item 9, and let's review the ODC contract with InSource Insurance Group. I'm assuming for our DNO.
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chairman. The effective date of this policy would be August 18th, starting. This is the general liability insurance contract that looks like it comes out, it's a yearly contract. The good news is the annual premium didn't go up from last year. Same,
Is it general liability or professional liability?
I believe it is.
Should be professional.
I think it's professional liability. I say general liability just because of the way that the accounting structure is set up, but it is professional liability.
Thank you, sir.
You said it didn't go up, but last year we'd budgeted. No, I'm looking at the wrong. So it went up a little bit. 18,085 to 18,696.
It was it's 18,695 for the 23 budget. If for the 24 budget we're proposing, it's still at 18,696. There was no increase in the annual premium.
And in that seven,
seeing
does it show
18,346.
what their rating factor is? Like, what are they rating off of?
They have,
Because I'm gonna be honest, I do a ton of these, and this looks exorbitantly expensive.
on page 6 of the document, it talks about the directors and officers liability. It has general liability, personal and advertising, injury liability, medical payments, premises operations, products, completed operations. Has a limit of liability, general aggregate of $3 million and each occurrence $1.5 million. That director and officer's liability premium is $18,346, and there's a policy fee of $350 that gets to the total estimated annual premium at the top for $18,696.
Did we get any other bids?
I did not
we put it
receive
out
any
to
other bids.
submit for any other bids?
I am not sure. This came from our director of risk management within the city. I was just told her I'd bring it to the board and talk about it. I knew it was coming up in the budgeted number, and me trying to figure out where that budgeted number comes from, it comes from this right here.
I got you. Love to have had it right here.
Help me out here, Chris, because I guess our current policy sounds like it expires on the 18th, and then this one would renew.
Yes, sir. This one would renew with it,
So
so.
we don't have much time to do anything, to see if it was shopped or what. I mean, it seems high to me too. I bought them for like church DNOs and things like that, and church boards, and, it seems high to me. If we were to go ahead and renew, is this one, and maybe Chris, you can help me
And I'm sorry, I don't have my copy of it.
down at it's at the bottom of the board book. It's kind of towards the end.
Thank you.
It should be the very back there.
Oh, your battery's
I'm
down.
looking for one thing. Give me just a second.
I mean, I guess my question, while you look there, my question was, if we go ahead and renew it, and then we go, that gives us a little time to shop it. If we end up finding a much better deal, and we want to cancel that one, can we get a refund of the unused premium? And
That's what I'm looking at. So on these, typically, there's what's called a 25% minimum earned premium, meaning that once we bind it, we're on the hook for 25% of the pure premium, which would be 25% of that 18,346. And then once we're basically past the first quarter, if we cancel it, then they're gonna prorate and refund, basically down to the day. I'm not seeing a minimum earned premium clause on here, but I'm gonna assume that there is, but it's something we can get Delia to reach out to InSource for. If it's a primary carrier, there won't be. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and approve this right now. But I would like to direct Delia to, let's send out a request to several of the other insurance companies that are out there and get them to see if they'll quote the D&O for us as well. Because if we can come in, I mean, this looks not just exorbitant, but really exorbitant to me. But if, to know for sure, we need some other quotes. And then she can bring those back in a few months if we have some better quotes. If not, it's in place, we have to do nothing. But we can always cancel this and they'll prorate it and refund it, and then we can move to a
We would just need a
different carrier.
budget amendment if that happens at that point to move those funds around, so.
Because I don't ever remember looking at, did we look at this last year?
I don't remember saying
I
that.
don't ever remember seeing this, and I didn't go back in the board books, but I don't remember ever seeing the D&O insurance.
Yeah, I'd like it. Normally, what I'd like for Delia to do is look at, well, of course, this is our only insurance, but it should be that, any policies that come up, she should have something flagged probably 90 days prior to send out to.
Yes, and I think that's being done now.
Okay.
The new processes in place are catching those things, so that's why it got brought today.
So, and I would make the motion, then we go ahead and approve this because we don't want to be without the coverage. But I'll reach out to Delia, if that's okay, and tell her that we would like for her to reach out and get some other quotes, just so that we're doing our due diligence. And
I would second that motion.
have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Now, we're going to jump back to item 8. So hopefully that fills in that gap for you, Seth.
Okay.
And we're back to the budget.
Since we have that line item good to go, the only other item I would bring up is due to the change on the chamber's contract to the quarter, is that amount that we have budgeted there is for the full year contract?
We approved a full year contract, so it needs to stay there.
It needs to stay there.
We approved a full year budget.
Full year budget, okay,
So for now, that needs to stay that way.
okay. I just wanted to run that by you guys, so that's fine.
Good question.
The only changes from last time that we saw is down on business incentives. We had it budgeted at 58 million last year. I dropped it back down to 50 million, be more in line with kind of how actuals are. And the actuals for the incentives being paid out is nowhere near that amount. But I think that has to do with a little bit of the conservative side of it. And I dropped the infrastructure grant total down by 5,000 to be more in line with what we've actually paid out in infrastructure as well, going forward in this past fiscal year.
Do we have any infrastructure grants kind of in the
Well,
pipeline?
that was gonna be my
think there
question,
is.
maybe in the next year, if we could track the infrastructure downtown Odessa, the grants from the budgetary, so we could see what level for using it for other purposes if it wasn't being used, but now, as it is now, it doesn't come up, and I don't keep a running tabulation of it,
Well, I even thought about changing up the financials a little bit to include something like in there that tells, and maybe this month, this was paid out to this
Yeah,
entity
that
or
would be
here,
good.
and then have just kind of a running list throughout the year that constantly gets updated in those financials as well.
right, but, you're gonna move 5,000 out of the infrastructure, is that what you're saying?
Well, there was 275 budgeted last year in 23's budget, and we're gonna just budget it at 270,000.
Where did you come up with the 5,000?
Just the change between years in actuals. It has been a little bit less, that account showing.
On
about-
average, that's what we've spent.
On average, it's getting it a little bit more in line.
Yeah.
That way, that frees up more of your funds for your other accounts. that
Could
we're
grow
gonna-
with the way prices are increasing, so.
So would you
I'd
rather
say
keep it
leave
at
And tr-
275?
and we can keep it at
Just leave it the
275.
same.
It's strictly up to the board, so.
I mean, you guys are on the infrastructure board. We're going to rely on you.
Larry knows a lot more about pricing for these things right now than I
Just
do.
learned a lot the last month or two.
Yeah.
Things that I thought would cost 3,000 or 12,000 or 20,000, so.
Right. Okay, so then the changes,
So we're gonna leave that at 275? Is that what you're-
275. And then that would be the only change that's on this document that you've given us, would be just to change that.
To change
so
the
far.
275, okay?
Okay.
I will move that to 275.
Okay.
Okay.
Which leaves us, still our total expenses a little over 2.7 million for the year. Any more discussion? I would entertain a motion to accept the budget as amended with Mr. Robinson's suggestion to leave the infrastructure grants at $275,000.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Dr. Kurt,
Second.
second by Mr. Russell. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes,
will
sir.
say that now that the board has approved this budget, it will need to go to city council, the September 12th, city council meeting. Okay, is that the right date? Okay. And I'll be happy to
And
present.
you
that.
will be there.
I'll be there. I'm at every one now, so I'll be there.
Okay.
Thank y'all.
Thank you. This brings us to item 10, remove from the table and discuss and consider a resolution authorizing the Odessa Development Corporation to enter into an economic development performance agreement with Texline Energy Services, LLC. And I'll entertain a motion to remove it from table.
So moved.
Motion by Dr. Kurt,
Second.
second by Mr. Russell. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, item is removed from table. Discussion.
I think that's a very good one, probably the best one we did this year. For its merits and its size and fits into what we do.
Excellent. Everything looked good. Tracy, Mr. Mansky, do you guys have anything to add to
No, they,
text line?
well, Tina and I discussed earlier, there's been some confusion on, when these contracts need to be sent to the actual, client. Because we've been waiting for you guys to approve the, contract and then before we're sending it, but then if they have any changes that they would like to request, then it's gonna have to come back to you again.
How have we always done it in the
And-
past on those
Well,
contracts?
they've been
Back and forth.
back and
Back and
forth.
forth.
I mean,
We need to
before we,
outline a process.
yes,
Okay.
Because it's all over the place.
it's all over the place.
I think that's a great
It's
idea.
with two legal, it's running
We're having-
in front of two legal departments.
What is legal's recommendation? Would you rather us send the contract to the grantee, have them peruse it, make any changes, let it come back before it comes to us? That would be my preference.
What usually causes the back and forth? Is it the
Normally,
numbers
it's
or
just
is
gonna
it
be
the?
verbiage, it's gonna be some little language thing that their attorney goes, oh, you know what, I don't like that, let's see if we can get it changed.
We're happy to take it as
So-
far as we
Yeah.
can possibly take it to get most of the verbiage issues out of there before it's brought to y'all, so we don't have.
I would
to-
prefer it that way.
Yeah.
I would prefer that, that
You
their
guys
legal
work back
team
and forth.
and Jeff
Right.
Moore and city's legal team, they get it all worked out and
Yeah.
they're in all agreement before it comes to
Yeah.
us.
And
Would
that's
you guys
what we're
agree?
trying to do, as
That's,
far as getting all the
Well-
verbiage correct before it comes to you, but then there's been a couple of things that, just like city council, we had the two agreements on city council that we thought were okay, and then all of a sudden they weren't. So, I don't know. That's, we just need a,
When they do get to us, I'd like to see them redline
Or redline,
against our
yes.
typical,
agree.
yes. Well, and I just sent one out to, I sent the standard industrial manufacturing to the client finally because you guys had approved it, but then they asked for a Word document that they could redline, so, they're gonna ask probably for,
sure, they're
maybe
gonna
some
redline
changes.
it.
So-
I can't imagine that
and-
there's gonna be a grantee whose
Yeah.
lawyer doesn't redline
So that's what
something.
we're thinking. We just need instructions on, as soon as legal
Great
gets the
suggestion.
contract together, do we get it to the client first and then bring it back to you? After they
Yes.
Well,
look at
I would
it?
say when their legal looks at it, it needs
Yes.
to come back and probably go to Jeff Moore. Let him look at it, because he may bleed all over it, and if so, then it'll have to go back to them. When it
Right.
gets to a point to where both legal teams are in
Are
agreement,
okay.
I would say then bring it to us.
That's
Melanie, would you agree?
what I need, that's what I need.
This is,
So-
this is
I
my
mean,
opinion.
Track those
I'm going
changes.
to wanna be able to see it against what we as a group have decided is our standard contract.
Yes.
And as they're doing that,
And
if
that
they're,
may
if they're
be,
doing all the red
you
line
know.
changes, then when we get it, we can see
Well,
all the
Yeah,
back
so
and
you'd
forth.
send us, when it comes to us, send us a red line copy and send us a clean copy.
okay.
Clear as mud?
Clear as mud.
Great decision.
Yeah. Then I am going to
Great
send
suggestion.
this agreement to text line for them to review, and then we will get it back to you. Okay?
Great suggestion. Thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay. So it's removed from table. I don't think at this time we need a motion for approval because it's going to come back. So we can check this one off. I don't think, do we have any committee reports? I know partnership hasn't met since the last time. Tax incentive,
Doesn't meet till next year.
excellent. Advertising,
You've pretty much gotten it.
we got the update. Downtown Odessa, grants and review.
Downtown Odessa, we had a meeting yesterday. We've still got a project pending, and I requested a meeting with the applicant to go over some things that weren't clear and gave a little bit guidance on how she could clear them up, parallel, and put them on a spreadsheet or something. They weren't comparable on the bids. They were too many things aggregated into, little bundles. We didn't know what they were, so.
Are we
We're
doing
gonna-
at least 2 bids on everything? Is that what we?
Well, on this one, three, because the applicant made the first general bid for everything, nothing was broke out, so I said go outside and get 2 bids.
I got you.
They just bid it themselves.
Pardon?
They just bid it themselves?
They did, yes.
Okay.
And so I wanted two competitive bids from outside. And so we got that, but they're hard to interpret.
And then compliance, I think we haven't met in the last month, so, okay, good. Okay, the board may recess into executive session based on section 551.001, unless anyone else can think of a reason for us to go into executive at this point. I don't have anything. Would you like to go into executive session?
No, I'm waiting for your next, I just have a request.
Okay. Item 13, we reconvene. Item 14, citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Is that the one?
Well, we talked about the contract. We haven't actually seen a copy of the contract. I don't know that any of the contractors have seen any of their contracts because we've not received any of those. So we talked about a contract that we've never laid eyes on. So,
We'll send you a copy of the contract.
great. I don't know where, and that might have
Current
been.
media?
So, Mr. Crow, you were talking about reading a contract and some stipulations in there, but,
Mine was the most recent copy, which was in last year's.
well, we have the one currently taking place right now.
It's the same.
So you approved contracts, but you've not actually read a contract for the upcoming year.
They go to the
supplied us.
approval
Yeah,
first, and then they go to the contract.
So you have seen a contract?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was kind of.
Okay.
I'm going off the one that was signed last year, and then the only change we're making this year is to change it to quarterly.
No, but what y'all just voted on, y'all have seen it.
We've seen the proposed contracts for
Yes.
next year.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about, yes. Now we'd like to see a copy of the proposed contract, because again, none of the contractors have seen it. So, I mean, the contractor may come back and say, well, we can't agree to those stipulations.
Did y'all normally get to see the draft
They're,
contract?
I thought they were normally in the packet.
Because there was not even a week between the approval of the grants and.
Yes,
getting the package.
understand that.
They were not in the packet.
So that's normally, every other year they've been in the packet. So we've all seen it and they just weren't in the packet. So we've discussed it, but we haven't actually, the contractors have not actually seen what we're agreeing to, so.
Separate email. I think all the contracts were in one email.
Yeah, I think we got that yesterday.
Tuesday.
Yeah.
What day is
Like I
this?
say, I know, I've seen it.
Tuesday.
Then we will forward it over. So we have our approvals. Now we'll let
Great.
you guys.
I'm sure
see
all
it
the other
and-
contractors
and
would
see if
love to
y'all
have
wanna
their
approve it.
copy to see if they can adhere to what has been discussed. So, all right,
Excellent.
thank you.
Can you guys send out the contracts? Legal? Mr. Jones, team, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any other citizens' comments on non-agenda items? Hearing none, moving on. Upcoming dates, tentatively, next ODC board meeting is September the 14th, 2 PM. Everybody good? Excellent. Based on that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Holman. I'll take Mr. Russell's as a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We stand adjourned. Thank you.